Good afternoon, everyone. I am Susan McGuire, Director of Professional Development at ACCE. I'm very happy to welcome you to this afternoon's Professional Roundtable. In this roundtable, Gina Martin, Senior Vice President, Member Relations and Sales for the Greater Lehigh Valley Chamber of Commerce, will present and lead a discussion on the art of closing membership sales. After the presentation, there will be opportunity for discussion, brainstorming, and support. So bring your questions, challenges, and ideas. Before I turn the program over to Gina, I have a few housekeeping notes. First, you all are in listen-only mode during the webinar to avoid background noise. We'll keep the lines muted while Gina does her initial presentation, which will be, I believe, for a half an hour or so. Second, after Gina's presentation, we'll have time for questions, and there will be two ways to ask questions. First, you can use the question function of the webinar. There's a question box in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Just open that up, type in the question, and I'll be able to see it, and we'll read the question to Gina. You can feel free to type in a question anytime during the presentation as you think of it. So if she's on a subject and you have a question about it, just type it in, and then she'll answer it at the end. If we run out of time and you've typed a question in and we don't get to it, we'll contact you. We'll have a record of that and we'll contact you. And then also Gina will have her contact information on the last slide, so you can get in touch with her directly if you'd prefer. In addition, another way to ask questions, in the webinar panel on the right-hand side, you'll see a little hand by your name that you can click on to raise your hand. If you click on that, I'll unmute your line when we get to the question part of the webinar. And you can ask the question, or you can share an observation or participate in however you would like to in the discussion. And as I indicated, you'll need to enter the PIN number when phoning in so to be unmuted. And then after you're finished with your question or discussion, I'll remute your line and I can call on someone else. And third, this roundtable call is being recorded, and it will be up on the ACCE website on the ACCE Membership Development Division page by Friday, May 24th. And I will also post Gina's presentation slides, which are also posted on the webinar panel as handouts. So you can go there right now if you'd like, open up the handout part of the panel and download it. If you prefer not to, as I said, I'll post them with the recording. So with that, I'd like to introduce our speaker. Gina Martin currently holds the position of Senior Vice President of Member Relations and Sales for the Greater Lehigh Valley Chamber of Commerce. She began her career with the Chamber in September 2011. She serves more than 5,000 members and delivers value through superior benefits, as well as the opportunity for members to engage and connect with other businesses. This has led to a growing and vibrant membership throughout the Lehigh Valley. Before her chamber career, Gina was an experienced hotelier with a passion for delivering outstanding and memorable guest experiences. She has extensive background with full-service hotels with a concentration in conference management and sales. She holds a BS in Hotel and Restaurant Management from the Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Gina serves on the Hospitality Advisory Board at Northampton Community College, the Business Advisory Board at the McCann School, the Advisory Board at the Falcon Institute, and she's also an advisory board member with the Membership Development Division of ACCE, and she serves as a sales mentor. She consistently ranks in the top 3 in our sales contest in her dues income category, in her chamber's dues income category. Gina lives in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania with her husband and 3 daughters. She coaches youth cheerleading and serves on the board of CYO at Notre Dame of Bethlehem. So she's a busy lady, and we're very grateful to have her with us today. So with that, Gina, take it away.
Well, thank you, Susan, so much for the warm welcome. I'm looking forward to some good discussion today with closing memberships, probably one of my most favorite things to do over the course of my day. So before we get there, I thought it was important for a little refresher on the steps in the sales process. It's important to have a good process and plan in place as it provides structure in your sales activity and keeps you focused. And if you're focused on positive behavior, the revenue results will come. You want to have goals in place as well as a way to measure your success and to have some accountability. And that all leads to financial stability at your chamber. So let's go ahead and take a look at the sales process. And a lot of these items we'll be covering today as we progress through the webinar. But a good sales process is never set in stone. So don't ever think like whatever's on this slide you have to follow with every sales call that you make. It should be revised and adapted regularly, as you'll want to make sure it reflects your rapidly changing market, your customer needs, and other things relating to your chamber. But in the planning phase, you're identifying your prospects, who you want to call on. And you want to maximize your efforts with quality leads, because that's going to lead you to closing more sales, right? Those leads that make sense. If you have a sales team, I'm sure all team members have a prospect list that they're working. And in our busy schedules, lead generation through multiple sources is critical in filling your pipeline. Back in January, Rebecca Wood led a webinar on building your pipeline, and she touched on sales activity and goals. And you can always refer back to that webinar on the ACCE website. And we'll talk a little bit later about lead generators. Next is your opening and your approach. How are you approaching those potential members, right? You identify someone that you want to call, but what are you saying? And how are you getting the meeting or creating the interest from that potential member? And we'll look at that. Now that you've landed that meeting, what are you saying and asking them, right? Those critical questions. And then the value-based info sharing that comes with it. You have so many benefits at your chamber, but you tell them everything that you do? Gosh, I'm sure you don't. You would be there all day. But I'm going to guess you don't have a lot of time. So when you're in front of someone, you want to connect the dots based on what they need. And we'll take a look at some of those questions. And what are some of the objections a prospect might have? How will you handle those? And are you empowered to make those decisions right then and there? So we'll talk through some of that. And then once you've looked at their issues, their questions, their concerns, you're going to go in and you're going to ask for the membership. And we'll examine all of that in just a minute. So let's take a look at the traits of the successful salespeople. I feel if you have any number of these, you can sell anything. The first that I want to focus on, and I'm so passionate about this, but it's really the confidence and conviction. You have to have these things to perform at your highest level. You know your value and worth, you believe in it, and you're passionate about helping businesses utilize the resources you offer. Let that shine through when you're representing your chamber at all times. Authenticity, genuinely caring and taking an interest in others. Success in sales is about creating those heart connections. When I'm meeting with a new business, I like to go to their place of employment. I like to sit in their office and observe and look for clues to really create that connection. You've heard it before. People do business with those they know, like, and trust. You're building trust and creating a shared interest connection with somebody. For me, the last 17 years of my sales career, I can usually find a heart connection around kids. I have 3 kids. They play sports. They're in school. I've had some of my best conversations recently around college. I have a senior in high school, and she's off to college. And some of these conversations have been so great with other people who are experiencing some of those very same things during this time. So, again, whatever commonality you share with somebody, find it and create those heart connections, because they'll surely lead you to success in sales. Having empathy and really the true desire to help, that's going to come out in your conversations, and it's an important trait. Asking the right questions and listening. Listening is a huge skill, but really you want to get to those questions, listen, so then you can offer solutions. So that's an important trait in your success. And then having the patience and perseverance. Don't give up. Follow up when you say you're going to. Ask them how they would prefer that you follow up. Do you want a text? Do you want a phone call? Do you want an email? So many times I hear, thank you so much for being persistent from a new member, right? It might have taken 3-4 phone calls, but they appreciated that follow-up. And I know sometimes I talk to other salespeople who might say, well, I don't want to keep bugging them, so I stop calling. They'll call me when they're ready. But that's not the case. You may get lucky with a few of those that might call you back, but honestly, it requires effort on your part and a solid follow-up plan. If you are genuinely worried about being too pushy, you could craft your follow-up message to say something like, I'm just checking in with you because the timing of the event we're having and your interest in joining, might be a perfect fit. I'd love to talk further with you and have you at this event we have coming up. So make it about them and something that they would value. And mostly invest in yourself. Look the part, play the part, and take those opportunities for self-improvement always. So let's take a look at our pipeline. Building your pipeline with leads and prospects that make sense. Look at your own database. It's huge. If your database is anything like mine, I think we have somewhere like 65,000 records in our database. But it's just a great resource for us at all times. Make sure you can access your database from wherever you are. Can you get it on your phone, on your laptop, if you're in your car? But that past history on a member is so critical. Things like how much they pay and their overall spend in a particular year, or if they were a member previously, when did they drop and why did they drop? All of those things are important in a future conversation. And then what I like to do is, depending on my schedule of appointments, if I have some free time in between, I like to do drop-ins. So if you have access to the database when you're out, you'll know who's in that area, who's a member, who's not a member, and maybe an opportunity for a drop-in call. So your database is critical. New development and business moving into your area. They need your resources. I have a groundbreaking I'm coordinating next week, but it starts even before dirt is moved. So it's never too early to make that outreach. And remember, you read about something happening in your area, they need your resources. So make that call. Job boards, local, who's hiring in your area. They appreciate your services. We have a local company here, ADP. They're a large payroll company. I'm sure you heard of them. They have a headquarters here in our market. And their recruiters are looking at our marketing as a way to recruit. And they're spending some time at our young professional events, setting up exhibit tables for their own recruiting needs. So job boards are a great resource for you. Staff referrals. For us, this is huge. They are warm leads by the time they hand it off to our member relations team. But get your team involved in being awake and alert to those membership opportunities in your area. And then, of course, your volunteer and your boards. They love to assist and help where they can. And we have a good referral program at our chamber where we give referral credits on the next membership investment invoices if they refer a member that joins. So we make sure we promote that, and we get leads weekly from our board and volunteers and our members. And then, of course, non-members attending your events. This is a great way and a great conversation starter. We have a good process here at our chamber. Anytime a non-member registers for an event, we get the notification from our accounting team. So we know in advance we could meet them at the event and introduce them around. Huge win. And we also have the opportunity to follow up after the event. Again, it's a great membership discussion starter, following up on the event, what they thought, seeking their feedback. And if they're already attending your event, you're halfway there. So I love those non-members. You could also call them future members. We call them future members as well. But anyway, let's keep looking. Okay, so now the membership meeting. So you've identified the right prospects. Let's get prepared for the membership meeting. Preparation is key all around. Research the business before the meeting. Your own database, as we just mentioned, is huge for details. But also, are they anywhere in the news? What do you know about them? Did you look through their social media or LinkedIn? Have you been on their website? You want to show how knowledgeable you are when you're in front of them. They'll appreciate that. When you ask to meet, did you just tell them why you wanted to meet? I mean, it sounds a little silly, but prepare them as much as possible for the meeting. Otherwise, the sales cycle is going to take longer than expected. If they think you're just there to drop by and say hi, they might not be prepared to answer your questions or learn about what you're all about. So what I typically say here is I will acknowledge something about their business, tell them I just read about them or saw them somewhere, tell them my desire to learn more, and ask to meet to also share how the chamber can benefit them. But the key is make it about them, not you. It's not about you needing another sale, but really about them and what you're hearing and learning and how you want to match those two things. Very rarely am I told, no, we won't meet with you. I might hear, well, we don't have time right now, but it's okay to schedule that appointment months out. So keep that in mind. If someone won't meet with you next week, 3 months is okay too. And then who are you meeting with? I always ask for the person who would manage the Chamber of Commerce relationship, community relations or marketing in a large company, the business owner in a small company or a restaurant owner, a store manager if it's a retail store. But make sure the person that you're talking to and are going to be meeting with is ultimately the person who can make the decision to invest. And then lastly, know how much time you have at that meeting. Is it a 30-minute meeting? Is it a 1-hour meeting? Manage accordingly and be on time. If you're late, it will show your lack of respect for their time. I always, what I do is I'll send an Outlook invite and I'll indicate the time. And if I want to push it to an hour, I'll put that hour time slot there. But that's usually a good indication of them setting aside that hour time slot for you. So during a meeting, you're going to ask open-ended questions to help you craft your value and benefits. And if you're a chamber like ours, you're not a one-size-fits-all chamber. You need to identify what that business needs from you in order to be successful, and then what value do you bring them? So these are just a few questions that I put together today, but some of the questions that I like to ask a business and really just try to get to know them better. And then from the answers they bring you, you'll be able to craft your benefit, your value, right? What value can you bring them? But obviously the hiring and promoting and training staff, I mean, that's just, I feel like that's everywhere right now. And what resources do you have? And, I'm always prepared to answer those questions and always prepared to connect businesses in that hiring question. Celebrating a milestone, I love that, because if they're celebrating something, they want to tell the world, what resources do you have in your chamber that can help them talk about their 50 years in business, or a promotion of someone who's been with the company for 30 years and now all of a sudden, they're the president and CEO. So, and then what marketing opportunities do you have to really upsell and enhance their presence? So that's always a favorite one, and it gets them talking. And then remember, you're allowing them to talk about themselves. So people love to talk about themselves. So that's always a great question. I also like to know if they have any other memberships in any other organizations, because that could give you an indication of before the actual budget question, it will give you an indication of where they're spending. There might be other chambers in your backyard. How much are they spending on those chamber memberships? There might be an economic development membership they're paying for. There might be a tourism bureau membership they're paying for, or another trade association. So if you get an idea of what that looks like, and then how much money is available for your chamber, it's just good info to have. Of course, what are some of your challenges? Let them talk about their problems, because your job as you're listening is going to be then to craft your summary and then your solutions for those problems. All right. So we'll spend a good amount of time on the next slide, but let's talk about closing the sale. I'll say seal the deal. Let's seal the deal. But how many times have you heard, and I have to chuckle because I hear this a lot, oh, I haven't gotten around to filling out the application. I mean, it can seem like the most tedious task in the world for some people. But honestly, last week I had 3 membership meetings, and all 3 joined during the meeting, and not one of them had a membership application. So just something to think about. I'm not here to tell you to change your internal process, but what exactly do you do with those applications once a member joins? For us, we shred them, especially if there's sensitive information on there, like a credit card number or something. So we don't keep them anywhere in the office. We use the membership application to really capture the data that we need, which is their profile listing information. We want to make sure everything is accurate so that we can accurately represent them on our website. But beyond that, if they have a business card and they have a website, you're pretty self-sufficient. You can go in and kind of create that. So I find when the application is a stumbling block, all offer to take some notes and create their membership without the application. And I've had some real success there. But let's say you had a meeting with someone and they said, well, I'm gonna think about this and call me back in 2 weeks. And when you call them back in 2 weeks, they say, sure, I'm gonna join, but I haven't gotten around to filling out the application. So what I do here, and I'll hear that over the phone during my follow-up, I'll say, well, gee, it's easier for you. Let's just do it over the phone. You won't need to fill anything out. And that seems to work really well, where I'm able to just make that membership happen over the phone with a credit card number. I can process that credit card number right when I'm on the phone, email them a receipt as we're on the phone. So I just feel like that process could be streamlined. Again, depending on your own internal process, but don't let the application be a stumbling block. Find ways around that. And I think you'll see that you're speeding things up a lot better. Let's see, show value based on what you've just learned. So you've listened to their needs and challenges. Now you can present your value. And again, this is going to be a little different based on the business and industry you're talking to. But what I like to do here is I like to summarize what I've heard and now what we have to help them. And this helps me connect the dots. And what it also does is it actually creates my own to-do list when I'm in a meeting with someone. And I'll actually reference that. So if I'm meeting with someone, I'll say, oh, okay, well, I'm listening to you and I'm creating my own to-do list. And these are all the things that I'm going to do for you when I get back to my office or when I get back to my desk. So as an example, I recently met with a large e-commerce fulfillment center. One of the takeaways was their desire to hire more than 100 people over the next 3 months. But not only did they want to hire, they had a need for a bilingual staff. And they wanted help in tapping into the minority population within our city. Well, our chamber happens to have a Hispanic business council and a diverse board of Hispanic business leaders that turned out to be an excellent connection for this particular business. We recently held the Cinco de Mayo family-friendly event, and it was the perfect venue for this employer to set up shop and promote their recruiting needs. So that was the value for that member. We didn't discuss much of anything else during that meeting, but the end result is they joined. But I was able to quickly connect the dots right then and there for him. So that's just one example. So membership perks and freebies, what are some perks you can add in knowing what you know about the business that will help? What I love to use is come as my guest to this next event, and it's not just any event. I'm going to pick a wow event. Maybe it's our annual meeting, which is, 1,300 people and it's a big light and sound production. Maybe it's another key signature event we'll do. Maybe it was we just did a Business Matters live taping with Governor Wolf here in Pennsylvania. Those are wow events. So, if I say, come as my guest to this event, I know you'll love this. Those kinds of things that you can throw in might be huge to that particular business, and it might cost you a meal, right? But the impact is huge. You're going to wow them with your event excellence and exceptional event production. And then the introductions you're going to make for them along the way are just huge and go a long way. Better yet, you can find a sponsor that's not using all of their seats and ask the sponsor if it's okay to seat a prospective member with them. Sponsors will love to have a prospective member with them, and I'm sure they'll have great things to say about the chamber. But it's just something so easy to do, and it's a huge wow. So we often use that at our chamber. You might want to waive an application fee if you have one. I'm not sure if many chambers are still using application fees, but I would think to a small business, waiving even a $25 fee might just be a huge help in having them make the membership affordable. So that could be something you can do. And again, I just think making key introductions to area business leaders is just another perk, in my opinion. I think you've asked the right questions. You've determined that this is of great value to them. So now talk about who you're going to connect them with once they join. So I recently met with a nonprofit, and with nonprofits, the key intros to business leaders for funding is huge, right? Anytime that they can access those lists, but at the same time, if you're making key introductions for them, it's incredible. So during the meeting with the nonprofit who wasn't yet a member, not only did she say she wanted to get some key introductions, of course I asked, well, who are some of those introductions? And I made my to-do list of those people she wanted to meet. Well, 3 out of the 5 she mentioned were our board members. So it just was so natural and easy for me to say to her, these are our board members. I can absolutely make these introductions. And, but, I think too, you want to look at the timing of when you do that. Sure, you can go back to your desk and make those introductions even without them joining right then and there. But, in this case, we said, well, let's finalize the membership and then we'll make those introductions happen. So you're kind of creating that urgency that is so important in this process. So next, call to action, creating a sense of urgency. For us, we have print publication deadlines. We often will mention what those deadlines look like. So in order to get listed in the next month's issue, to be highlighted as a new member, you need to join by this date. Or we put out a membership directory that in order to be listed in that, and that has a year shelf life, you need to join by this date. I think whatever works for you and your chamber, but sometimes having those deadlines and those hard dates that people can relate to will help you move the sale along faster. So that's something that's important. And then I think when it's all said and done, ask for the sale. So I typically, once I've summarized the needs and matched them to the benefit, I'll ask the member, well, how does this sound? Did I answer all of your questions? Wait for the response. And then can we finalize the membership now? And when I say now, I mean, yes, let's finalize it right here on the spot. Now, it's, you're not going to close even probably 50% of your membership on the spot. But if you have a commitment to join, right, and those things are in place, then I think that's your goal. I typically, when I'm meeting with someone, I'll travel with my membership packet materials. I don't pull everything out, but I have it with me so that if someone does join on the spot, I'll hand them their plaque and I'll hand them all of their fun things that they get so excited about. But remember, not everyone is that type of joiner, right? It might be a 30, 60, 90 day with checks and processing and things like that. So keep that in mind. Don't get discouraged if it doesn't happen on the spot. But the most important aspect of winning that sale is going to be in a timely follow-up. You need a solid plan and a discipline for this. I use my dashboard. Our database is web link. So for any web link users out there, I'll tend to use my dashboard and I'll schedule follow-up calls in there, and I have my dashboard open 24/7. So I know exactly what I need to do. And I'll also use Outlook to schedule phone calls or meetings or anything that I need to follow up with. But a sale should never be lost because the salesperson forgot to follow up. So just make sure you have a clear plan for that. And budgets, I know we didn't really spend too much time on that, but if you can determine a chamber investment dollar figure, this could help you. For us, we have tiered investment levels, giving them options and total customization. So when I'm in a meeting with someone, if I can determine how much they're willing to invest, we can typically create a package. But again, it's value. But if you can capture that data while you're in the meeting and talk through and customize something, I think it's a huge win. And then we didn't really focus too much on any specific objection. I think, if you hear on the financial side, like, oh, I can't afford this right now. One of the things that we do at our chamber is we do consider a payment plan option. I mean, it's not every month, but if a typical membership is $500 and someone says, for a small business, that's a little hard for me right now, I would absolutely consider a $250 payment today and then a $250 payment in 3 months, and that would allow them to be a member today. So that's something that works for us. It might not work for your chamber, but it might be something to consider. And then I would just say that cost rarely comes up in the beginning of the conversation. I feel like it's something that you hear at the end. You've kind of earned that discussion topic at the end. But I would say most people are savvy and have already checked out your investment structure online. So it's really just a matter of understanding how much they're willing to invest in you and in your chamber. And then you're on your way to making it a win for the customer and closing that sale. So Susan, that's all I have for my presentation, and I'd love to look at some questions.
Okay, well, thank you, Gina. That was great. Yes, if anyone has any questions or anything to share, please go ahead and type your question into the question pane. Just type it in. I will read it out to Gina, or you can indicate that you'd like to raise your hand, and I will unmute you. I don't see anything yet. In the meantime, oh, here we go. Here's one here. Let me see this question. Here's first question. How do you feel about mentioning other chambers that members are a part of?
Yes, I think it's good to know, right? It's good info to have. We have a similar situation in our market, so I think it's important that you understand what other chambers they're a part of. And I ask the question, how much do you invest in that chamber? Give me some of your thoughts and feedback on some of the events at that chamber or what you know about that chamber. I think you can have a good conversation around that, and then it's good to have. And then obviously you're going to have, if you know that there's other chambers in your market, I'm sure you have some key differentiators that you'll be able to then kind of talk about your chamber and why you're different and why they should join you. In addition to them, I don't know that you would so much as say join us and not them, but is there room for both? I guess, Did that answer your question?
Yeah. Let me see here. Do you have any other ideas for creating urgency?
Well, I definitely think, the deadline, any type of print deadlines that you might have. I think also if there's something they want help promoting, we find at our chamber, they always want to plan a ribbon cutting, and that ribbon cutting tends to be, in 3 weeks where you're like, pulling your hair out. So I think, if there's something that they want from you, and you're going to need some time to execute and plan and coordinate, I think you need to say, we need to make this happen now so that I can do all of the things you need me to do on my end. And then of course, if there's a key event or something happening in your market that you want them a part of, just say, hey, look, I'd love to get you on board with this or make this happen for you. Let's finalize this.
Okay. Kathy has a suggestion or wants to share that she sends a thank you note for any sales meeting within 24 hours. And she asks, how long do you typically wait between a sales meeting and a follow-up phone call?
Oh, that's great. I love the thank you note. We do that too. We have personalized thank you notes, quick emails as well. I think what I try to do is if I leave that meeting and I know there's going to be a follow-up, I ask them when would they prefer that I follow up, and then how do they prefer I follow up. I feel like we're so inundated with emails, right? 100 emails a day, but sometimes you and you won't hear anything, and then you throw a quick text that says, hey, da da da, and then you'll get a response back in literally seconds. So I think you put it back on the customer. If the customer doesn't really respond to the time follow-up, then you might want to wait a week. I think a week is certainly good.
Okay, here's an interesting question. Should I let them speak more? I have been in meetings where they speak for 80% of the meeting.
Well, and is it because you're asking all of those questions? I think if they're speaking and you're listening to those and you're able to find solutions for what they're talking about, then it's probably a good thing. But at some point you have to then turn the conversation to, okay, now let's talk about why we're a good benefit for you, or why this is going to help you. So you do have to find that and get your in there to kind of flip it. And try to do that as best that you can. But I think it's okay. And I've been in situations like that before.
Okay. How do you populate new prospects into your database? I know you touched on it, but where do you get all your leads?
Well, that's a good question. So, we read the paper. We're watching the news. We're reading the paper. We know what's happening. Even though our chamber is separate from economic development and our tourism bureau, we're three separate organizations, but we do work very closely with them. So many times, if economic development is recruiting a new company to come in, we'll also know about that. And many times it's a warm introduction. So we'll have those opportunities that we've read about or that we've been introduced to from there. So I just think it's being alert and awake to all of those opportunities. And then once we have those leads, it goes right into our database as a prospect. And then we're able to run reporting on all of our prospects, and then obviously prioritize them.
Okay. Large businesses. Do you have any specific advice for getting appointments with or closing large businesses?
Yeah, it's each one is unique. I think it depends. When you say large business, it's kind of broad. I think industries like I mentioned, the e-commerce fulfillment. I think you'll get a lot of requests for candidates, right? They want to hire, and if you have that workforce connection with your chamber, I think that's a huge asset. I think for large business, you want to focus also on some of your policy, right? Your public policy, and maybe there's even a government affairs person on their end that they would see value with some of your policy things and initiatives in your chamber. So that could be huge. But you're right. I mean, depending on the type of industry, they might not attend your events. They might not want to be marketed. Sometimes we will have manufacturers and they'll actually tell us, well, don't even list me in your directory. Like maybe they're afraid of being solicited. Who knows? There's a number of things, but they support us. They support us from the public policy side. They support our manufacturing council that we have at our chamber, but they don't actually want to be marketed. So it's an interesting balance. But I would, I think if we broke that large business down into some specific industries, we could probably get creative with some ways in. But then again, I think too, like a very large business, like in our market, we have Air Products and PPL. Well, both those companies are have community relations folks, and they're very active in our chamber. So again, look for that community liaison in those larger companies to be your person.
Okay. Cold calls. Do you do cold calls? Do you just stop in a business with a membership packet without an appointment?
I do, and that's why I said it's so critical that you have access to your database, because you don't want to walk into a business and say, "Oh, I'm from the chamber," and you're not a member, and lo and behold, they are a member, right? So you kind of want to know who your members are, and I think if you can quickly access your database before you do that cold call walk-in. But I do plenty of those, especially if you're calling on a restaurant owner. How many times can a restaurant owner take your phone call? Right? They're cooking food in their kitchen, so. I think sometimes some of your best meetings are when you walk in to say, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm with the chamber, and congratulations, or your restaurant looks great, and I'd love to take a few minutes and learn a little bit about some of the things you're doing, and I brought some information about the chamber, and if you have a couple of minutes, we can kind of talk that." And sometimes some of your best outcomes happen there, right? So I definitely think it's nice. And, don't be afraid to also, when you say cold calling, walk into a member business too, but just know that they're a member when you're going to do it. But when you have that free time and you're in a community or a downtown and there's a member next door, stop in and say, "Hi, I'm from the chamber, and thank you so much for your investment in our chamber. We really appreciate all that you do. Here's my card if I could ever be a resource." So it's twofold, right? It's that relationship on that existing member, and then it's the new member. But yeah, I stop in at businesses every week.
Well, here's a question that relates to that a little bit. Can you provide tips on how to balance new sales while also spending time retaining members?
Yes. So, and that's where it comes with your pipeline, right? And all of those resources, the sources of leads that come into your chamber. And your staff, your volunteers, your board. If you have people funneling you members, so a lot of that lead generation is going to come from other people, right? So now you have to just manage that. And of course, you'll create a little bit on your own. But if you have a nice influx of those leads coming in through outside sources, I think that's great. Your website should be another source, right? So from a search, how are they? If they're searching "join the chamber," does your website easily populate with the information on member benefits? All of that is important. And then of course on the retention side, I mean, we at our chamber, we have membership. We have within our boards and our staff, our volunteers, we have membership committees. So we have like an outreach committee that will outreach to new members when they join, and then they also will help on the retention side. So if the 60 and 90-day late list come out and there's 50 businesses on that list, they'll say, okay, who do we know and who can we call? And so they're also helping us on the retention side. But it's a full year process, and I understand that. But we also have a staff of 32. So what we say here at our chamber is everybody sells, everyone retains, everyone is invested in the member, right? So we're all part of that. So I'm not here at my sales desk promising, we have to actually deliver, but it's all staff who delivers that promise that keeps that member retaining. And, we have a pretty high retention rate here, but I couldn't do it alone, or even just our member relations team. It's a full staff effort here.
All right, absolutely. Two other comments on creating urgency. Christina says they have no print publication, so they're always looking for other ways to create urgency. And then Kristen says, we'd love to be able to report to our board at the next board meeting that they've joined. So thoughts on urgency, I guess, there.
Yes, I think, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I love that idea on the reporting to the board. We do that as well, where the board list will go out. Maybe since there's no print publication and urgency there, maybe it's a perk that you're throwing in, maybe pertaining to social media. Maybe it's a member of the day promotion through social media, or an email promotion that you're going to do to the email database about that member. But I think it should be something pertaining to them being listed somewhere, right? That you want to make sure that they get scheduled and out there, especially if they have something on their end that they want to promote. And then I like the idea of announcing it to the board. If there's an opportunity for that member then to be visible to your entire board, I think that could be a huge win.
Okay, here. Okay, what is your approach to mid-year new members regarding prorated annual membership, or does your chamber have membership 12 months from date of joining?
Yes, we do have 12 months from date of joining. But sometimes we're in an interesting situation, and so I have a restaurant owner right now that I'm working with that is a member currently, and now he has a second restaurant, and so now we want to join that second restaurant. But obviously, we don't want to be sending a bill to this restaurant, we want to make it convenient for the member and for the customer. So we're coordinating one membership invoice for both restaurants, but the timing of those invoices are going to vary. But honestly, if you have to eat a couple of months of membership to then just, be able to streamline their invoicing, I think it's okay. And I also think that if you are only calendar year and they're 6 months in, then I would think that yeah, you're going to give them a discount off that full year. But we have about 50 new members that join every single month, all year long. So it's a full 12 months.
All right, here's a good question. How do you stay organized? We have this person has a team of 2 membership professionals, and a membership team of 2, and over 650 members. They have a 6-member staff. And I will say that you may want to check out our earlier calls because we sort of start at the beginning of the sales process in our first set of calls that I think Rebecca did, our first new membership roundtable. And you'll find those on our membership development division page, which I'll talk a little bit about how to get there, but you may want to peruse that a little bit, check those out. But Gina, have any thoughts on organization?
Yeah, I think, again, go back to your database, whatever you use, Chambermaster, WebLink. I use our database for everything, and it's really a way for salespeople to communicate as well. I'm sure there's a tab in whatever database you have for notes, right? So if you call on a member today, what's going to prevent my colleague in the office next door to call on that member tomorrow if she doesn't know that I'm already communicating with them? So it's a way for us internally to communicate if you have multiple salespeople. And then, of course, I use the task in my dashboard. So that's how I'm tracking like my follow-ups. So it's having that. So that's essentially a to-do list, right? So you have the to-do list in your dashboard, and then you have and then also in my dashboard, again, if there's any WebLink users out there, you'll appreciate this, but also in my dashboard are all my retention calls. So that's all right in front of me. And when it's finalized and done, it comes off my list. So like I have like this rolling checklist. And then my prospects, I always carry my prospects. I mean, I have a notebook of prospects. And then we have sales meetings. So we have twice a month, our entire member relations team, and there's 5 of us on our team, we'll get together, but we all have a little different role, but we all get together and we talk about prospects, leads, and it's a very revenue driven meeting that focuses on revenue. But we also sell more than just memberships. We're selling sponsorships, and we sell the whole package within our team. So there's a lot of discussion around revenue and key accounts and people we're working, and we're always trying to develop those key accounts. So again, it's not, even though this presentation today was on membership sales, it's really all sales relating to that specific business. So yeah, it's communication, it's good use of technology, and just being alert and awake and having a good detailed kind of roadmap and a plan and a process, just like that plan we looked at earlier, will all help.
And Gina, when you were talking about the dashboard, are you talking about a dashboard on WebLink?
Yes.
Okay. Question mark. Clear.
So it's a tab that allows you to put your tasks in, your to-do list tasks. So, and you can just go in and create those from scratch. So you met with a business today. Now you go in and you make them a prospect, and then you create a task that says call so and so on this day and follow up on their membership or whatever it might be. And so it's your to-do list that will populate then in your dashboard. But I'm sure like a Chambermaster or another CRM would have a similar,
right,
and things to use. So.
Okay. How do you initially reach out to leads for new members? What are some touch points to get that first meeting?
So depending on how the lead was sent to me, right? So say, and I love member referrals and I love to give credit where credit is due. So if a member referred someone and said, hey, so here's an example. So Early Pest Control, they're a member and he's actually an ambassador for the chamber. And so he went to a meeting with a business and he went to sell him his pest control services. But in the process, he started talking about the chamber and he said, oh, are you a member of the chamber? And the business said no. And they kind of talked. Well, then he left that meeting. he emailed me and he said, hey, I have a lead for you, and I just was there, and they're expecting your call. So those are the best leads ever, right? So now I call and I said, Gary told me to call you. Congratulations. I'm so looking forward to meeting you. I'd love to come out and look at your space or talk to you a little bit. When can we set that up? So, I could then refer to the source of that referral. So those are easy. If I'm reading a new business is coming into the area, I'll call them up and say, oh my gosh, great news. I just read about your new business that's coming in. Congratulations. I'd love to come out and meet you and learn more and talk to you a little bit about some of the benefits of the chamber and how we can help you launch, right? So how can you help them? So how can you help them launch or share the news or tap into some of your lists? And I think to a business that's just starting out, it's so overwhelming. So they could just think that you're a breath of fresh air and they need your help and they need your support. So they'll welcome that meeting. But again, you'll want to focus on something that you read or know about them, and then open it up to can I come and meet with you? And people generally, I think, are typically very open to that.
Okay, we have a couple a comment and question on member referrals as a follow-up. Christina says they've increased their member referrals from once a month to 10 a month. And Nicole asks, how do you entice current members to provide new member referrals? Do you have a rewards program?
Oh, I love that. And that's awesome that you went from 1 to 10. Yes, we do. So we credit the membership dues invoice $50. So if a member refers another member to join and that member joins, the referring member will get a $50 credit on their next membership dues invoice. And there's no limit. So members that refer members all day long literally don't pay for membership. I mean, they've referred so many members that they don't have an invoice, because $50 times 8 members is $400, and that's kind of our starting tier membership. But it's interesting and it's taken off. And again, people love to give credit where credit is due. So they'll say, so and so referred me, make sure they get the credit. I just had another one yesterday. It was a board member on our nonprofit council, and she referred another nonprofit to join. So now, in a nonprofit, to save $50 on their next invoice is huge for them. So she's excited now. She already is going to get that credit. So that's our process. But I think whatever works for you, chambers that might not want to discount, and I get that whole thing. But anyway, it seems to motivate those small business owners to earn that money.
That sounds like great motivation to me. I think sounds awesome. Okay, here's another topic. How do you sell to mission, not specific events?
Right. No, and that's huge. And actually, we're in the process of really retraining our ambassadors and retraining our staff, because you're right. I mean, it's not every member is an event member, and probably 20% of your members are event members. And I learned that at my first ACCE conference, and it was just so eye-opening. But it's really about listening to the member. Don't start the conversation with your great events, right? We at our team, we have 40 events a month. There's an event a day, and most days there's 2 events. I mean, I could be at events all day long, and but you never want to open with that or start with that or assume that every member is going to come to all of your great events. I think it's a matter of finding the right fit and then really talking through, again, once you identify what their needs are, talking through which events make sense. And if there is an event you're going to intro, then it's going to be the right event. It's going to be because you're going to make key introductions. And that might be, the mission piece or the public policy side, or for us, we have a foundation. And so many people, it's just such an amazing thing that we do, the money we put back into our communities through our foundation. And so we talk about that a lot at our chamber. And some of your larger companies who maybe won't come to your events, but they'll support that foundation or some of the other mission things. So you want to find out what's important to them, and then and then talk about some of those things. But definitely don't lead with events. And again, like it was a retraining of our team, of our ambassadors. Our ambassadors love to talk about our events because many times they're hosting those new member orientations and those mixers, and they're saying, "Oh, come meet us at the event and come to the event." And we had to kind of say, "Okay, that those events are great, but the minute that member hasn't attended any events and their membership's up for renewal, what's going to happen? Oh, you have so many great events and I can't come to any, so therefore I'm not going to be a member anymore." And we hear it over and over again. So it's really kind of a mindset change. But once you begin kind of the shift in having those mission conversations, it gets a lot easier.
We have maybe time for one more question or so. Let me see. A couple comments first about member referrals. Christina says they don't discount. They send a gift card to the members, all donated to them from other members. They've taught their members how to find us referrals, just how we direct them to teach each other to find referrals for each other. And that's been key. And so
I love
good.
that. That's great.
Let's see, we talked about another comment on sense of urgency. Joe says, depending on why they want to join, you simply remind them that the sooner that they join, the sooner they can get plugged in.
That's
okay.
Great.
Yes. One final question: if you can share your, can you share your retention rate?
Sure. So we are actually, I think I'm trending 89% retention this past month and year to date. So it's good. It's exactly where we want it to be. And again, it's a full-fledged effort. It's not just me or any other member of our member relations team. It's everyone involved. Even our president and CEO, if there's someone I'm having a hard time getting in touch with, and it's someone that I know, we can't lose, or, sometimes things happen in your market. Maybe, a perfect example of this is we have a major car dealership that was just sold. So how do you take that car dealership with that owner who was so invested and so involved and always donating and always sponsoring to now, oh, well, we have a new owner and, well, we don't know anything about the chamber. Well, you're like, So sometimes you have to bring others with you, get other people involved. I use board members too. If there's folks that I'm having a hard time reaching, I'll call a board member and say, hey, I know so-and-so, help me out, make the call on my behalf or whatever. So I get as many people involved as I possibly can to keep that retention where it is. And it's been great.
All right. I think we're just at time. So if there was a few other questions, Gina, you got tons of questions and great questions, by the way. Thank you, everyone, for your participation.
Yes.
And Gina, so much for your presentation and answering all those questions. I'll reach out to you if you didn't get your questions answered, or I believe, Gina, on your last slide, do you have your contact?
Yeah. Sorry, I forgot.
No worries. There's Gina's information right there. So if you want to reach out to her directly to follow up or ask any questions, I'm sure she'd be fine with that. And just a final reminder, this call was recorded. I will post the recording along with Gina's presentation on our Membership Development Division page no later than this Friday. So you can check it right before you go to your Memorial Day weekend festivities. You can find it by clicking on Networks, hovering over Divisions, and then clicking on the Membership Development Division at the right-hand side of the screen. And I do hope that you all have visited that page. There's tons of good resources and information there. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this call, this is our last new membership roundtable of the year. I think I mentioned that, but if I didn't, I'm mentioning it now. And I want to just thank all of our presenters, Rebecca Wood of the Calgary Chamber, Adrian Kane and Tim Rogers of the Charleston Metro Chamber, and of course, Gina at the Lehigh Valley Chamber. We really appreciate your willingness to share your knowledge and walk everyone through all steps of the membership sales process. And recordings of each of these webinars are on the Membership Development Division page, along with lots of other resources and presentation slides. If you are not on the MDD mailing list and you'd like to be, please let me know. My email is smcguire, smcguire @acce.org. You'll get reminders of roundtable calls, webinars. You'll get our e-newsletter and so on. So please reach out if you'd like to make sure you're on that list. Thanks again, Gina, for taking the time to present and facilitate the discussion.
Thank you.
It was awesome. Thanks, everyone, for your participation and interest, and wishing everyone a wonderful afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Susan. Bye-bye.